Here in the studio, I have restaurant owner and chef Julie Lynn. Good morning to you, Julie.
Good morning, Nick. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And we're also joined by Vanessa Sturman, who is a plant-based health coach. Vanessa, good morning to you, Vanessa.
Good morning.
You are very peppy for 11:15 on the 3rd of January, I have to say, Vanessa. Is that the plants? Do the plants do that to you?
Do you know what? Having a plant-based way of eating gives you so much energy, so many nutrients. It also protects your cells, gives you great gut health as well. And all of that's related to your energy. So yes, I am often very energetic. And people find this when they start eating more of these kinds of foods.
Okay. And what about yourself, Julie? What's your level of energy this morning?
So I absolutely love vegan food.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this segment today, actually. And I love actually having a bit of a mixed diet with it. And actually, to be honest with you, the more and more that I go on, the less and less that I have an excuse that I'm not vegan yet, kind of thing, because I'm exploring all these dishes that maybe I wouldn't normally if I was just eating meat all the time. So things like exploring mushrooms. There's so many different types of mushrooms that work so well in dishes. In fact, I've actually cooked us something here in the studio, which I am perilously decanting in the studio at the moment. So
absolutely right. Well, while Julie decants, because I'm looking at some gorgeous dishes here. Vanessa, I'm sorry you're not in studio, Vanessa, to enjoy this. I suppose, Vanessa, maybe when someone thinks just being plant-based, they're thinking about cutting out things that they love from their diet. So they might love meat, or they might love cheese, or they might love eggs, or anything else, and they're focusing on what they're depriving themselves of. How do you break yourself out of that mindset when it comes to vegan food?
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very important, because it's really, really key to look at what I'm putting in. And the truth is, there is almost a direct replacement for anything that you previously loved. But what's important is to explore really new things as well. So even if previously you did love actually, if you love bacon, there is actually plant-based bacon. If you love scrambled eggs, there's scrambled tofu instead. And all of this is still much, much healthier, full of fiber, still lots of protein, can fill you up wonderfully and help your health. But go and explore other things like wonderful lentil curries, for example. Go and explore food from across the world, or think about what your favorite cuisine is. I mean, I love Caribbean food as well. And you can turn pretty much all of that, because of all the flavors and the spices and the herbs. I mean, that's what gives food its real flavor. And actually, you can do that with all plants. So it's important to look at how you're flavoring things. And that's where a lot of the health element comes as well, and having all of those wonderful bits of variety in herbs and spices.
Yeah, and Julie, it's interesting, because I should just say to say that I'm looking at two beautifully prepared plates of vegan food here. So, but what I'm not seeing is food that seems to be trying to pretend that it's something else. It's that you're not trying to create a beef burger that actually contains no beef at all. Is that something that you think is quite important, Julie, when it comes to vegan food?
No, I think it can range for different people in that way, because occasionally, as I guess I would call myself a flexitarian, which I know rubs some people up the wrong way, but I'm a flexitarian when I try and dip into a vegan diet when I can. But even when I am eating meat, I don't eat that much processed meat. So for me, I want to be able to cook dishes that I don't have to heavily rely on anything that's heavily processed, whether that be meat or whether that be vegetables. So here I've actually made you...
Yes, so I'm just going to take a quick mouthful here. Can you just talk us through, Julie? What is this?
So I've made a mushroom kway teow, and there's a dish in Malaysia called char kway teow, which is this beautiful, like, smoky flat rice noodle dish. There's shrimp.
Oh, wow. Julie.
So this is like a very vegan version. I'm so happy. This is a good reception. We wanted that.
I'm going in for a second. Wow.
And it's got lots of soy in it. A thing called soy caramel as well, which is like a kind of sweeter soy, lots of garlic, and oyster mushrooms as well. Now, one thing that I would love to see in our supermarkets actually is when we're exploring all these vegetables, you tend to just get in the kind of mainstream supermarkets your chestnut mushrooms and your white mushrooms, and maybe occasionally a portobello in there. But I think there's lovely mushrooms that we actually have here in the UK. It'd be lovely to see these kind of becoming a bit more available in supermarkets, because for me that brings the whole mushroom game up to a whole new level, and they're delicious. They go so well with stir fries, and again, a really good meat replacement for January.
Because a lot of these foods, if they're not readily available, that is absolutely delicious, by the way, I have to say. If they're not readily available in the supermarket, then you might be trying to hunt them down in kind of more obscure wee shops that can be a lot more expensive sometimes as well. I mean, is it fair to say say that eating a vegan diet can be quite expensive sometimes.
It can actually. So I guess depending, I mean, even some of the substitutes that you see, which kind of touches on the things that I was talking about with maybe even kind of ultra processed foods as well, they can actually be quite expensive in terms of if you're making that direct substitute. Now, I'm not actually against that at all, because I feel like if that's going to make people feel like they're like enjoying this vegan diet and you're having that processed thing, please do it, because by all means we all need our kind of indulgences. But with things like this, I think it can be expensive. But if you're looking at just purely buying vegetables, it's a bit cheaper. So it really depends on which way you're cooking. And even, in fact, the other dish that I brought in is also this lovely kind of Sichuan aubergine dish. Now, aubergine.
I'm going to try this here. I'm
I feel
so
sorry for
Vanessa.
I'm very jealous and my mouth is watering here.
So what is this that I have? So this sort
We'll
of
send
looks
you
like,
some, Vanessa.
this
And
looks like aubergine. Julie.
this is aubergine. Now, I love it when you fry aubergines. So if you kind of, I almost cut them into quarters and then fry them on each side. And aubergines really soak up oil. Now, this is also what I'm trying to say here, is that vegan diet, quite a lot of people just say that it's about health and it's about this. It's about flavour for me as well. And actually, if you do need to put in a little bit more oil to make that aubergine delicious, that is fine, because you're kind of cutting out some of your kind of animal fats that you normally would if you're kind of thinking of this as a substitute.
Wow, that is absolutely delicious. But it doesn't taste, I was going to say, oh, it tastes like this or it tastes like that, but actually it just tastes like a beautiful aubergine.
Yeah, I think if you
Absolutely
just
beautiful.
cook it really well, and things like what I would say, I was thinking about things that you could have in your pantry this veganuary if you are looking to make up
yes.
substitutes. Now, things like a good mushroom stock, I absolutely love that, because I think it gives a bit more body and a bit more richness than veg stock. And my friend actually Phil Curry, who has just wrote a book about baking, that was a bit of a tongue twister. He has actually wrote this thing where if you have sweet potato and steam it and put in a bit of water and almost egg wash any bakes that you have, it gives it that egg wash thing. So there's another kind of substitute you can do really easily, and it's really healthy for you.
Well, that is absolutely gorgeous. I have to say, Vanessa, I'll just lick my lips here and get myself sorted. Vanessa, when somebody says, okay, I'm going to do this, say, for January, and I'm going to call it Veganuary, you yourself are someone who does this, 365 days a year. And I mean, what were the things that you wish you knew, Vanessa, when you were beginning your journey towards being plant-based? Were there any stumbling blocks or anything you wish that someone had told you ahead of time so that you could, I suppose, be more prepared for what you ultimately ended up as?
So for me, I mean, I've been into health for 20 years. So it wasn't actually massively difficult for me at all. And I think that's also something people need to know is make sure you know what to be putting on your plate as well. Make sure you are piling it with lots of vegetables, really, really good healthy carbs, so that, your whole grains, your potatoes, really good sources of protein, your beans, your tofu, some really good fats, olives, avocado, making sure you're eating in a really balanced way. If I hadn't known that sort of thing, I would have struggled.
Yeah.
I also thought before I went fully plant-based that maybe I wouldn't get full of this way of eating. And now that was mostly because I'd had some not very good vegan food. So it's very, very important, like I said, to know about getting that balance onto your plate. And, when you are eating this really healthy plant-based whole food, which actually can be really, really cost effective as well. So, I know you were talking just before about
the cost.
worrying about the cost. And I think that's really important for people to know as well. Actually, your vegetables, your fruit, especially frozen fruit, beans, lentils, these are so cheap. And if you want to buy some processed stuff, fine, you can if you want, and you can, flex between the two. It doesn't have to be a one size fits all. So I think knowing how cheaply you can do it is very, very important for people as well. And knowing that there is a sort of substitute for anything, whether it's healthy or not as healthy. So if you want a big donut filled with chocolate
that's what I was going to ask you. When you want to indulge and when you want to just be absolutely filthy with your food, what do you go for?
Oh, God, for me, probably for me, cake. Now, I do make a lot of my own cake. I make some things that are on the healthier side, like a black bean chocolate mousse, but then I also make, just chocolate brownies, chocolate cake. You can go and find them out. There is this place in London that does these massive plant-based vegan donuts, and they are just great, covered in Biscoff and jammy Dodgers. And, I don't eat that much, but sometimes I want that. So it's important to know anything that you want to indulge in, there is that version. But if you eat mostly plant-based whole food, you're filling your plate with that. Now, even doing it, not 100% is fine. You know, I don't advocate, right, you have to go 100%. Just try having fun building these foods in and feel the benefit, and don't pressurize yourself if you can't do something 100%. It's totally fine.
And that's something you sort of alluded to, Julie, was that with your flexitarian sort of approach to things. What about, as I was sort of asking Vanessa, I mean, if there is anything in particular where you think, do you know what, it's the Christmas kind of time, post-Christmas time, you're trying to be a wee bit more flexitarian, but you want to indulge. What would be your one sort of recipe, or what would you go to?
Now, if I was to keep that vegan, I think I would probably go for, I always stock up my cupboards with lots of spices, lots of things like good soy sauce. Even there's a thing called Chin Kiang vinegar, which is a black vinegar, and it's quite malty.
Say that again, what is
It's
it?
called Chin Kiang vinegar, and it's a black vinegar. It's very malty and it's delicious. It's so nice. Now, I would probably make a really good stir fry, because when you're wanting to indulge a bit, you can just kind of replicate some of the dishes that you maybe get from a takeaway and substitute, for example, the beef, as we've done with that dish
Yes.
with oyster mushrooms.
I'm going back in for more, I'm sorry.
I mean, there's a lot of eating going on in the studio this morning. I love it. And it just makes you, it gives you that kind of feeling of satisfaction that you want from a takeaway, but you don't have the same guilt of eating so much meat. And actually, what I would say in Asia, when we are cooking these dishes, we don't use a huge quantity of meat in these things. Actually, I would say in the kind of replicas that we get here, you have a lot more chicken in your things. Maybe you would only have half a chicken breast in a kind of portion of noodles that are being fried in Malaysia. So for me, I'm actually quite used to not eating that much meat. But as long as you just have a good like army of spices and condiments and sauces, good mushroom stock as well. And my other secret tip, which I love, is using sesame paste in things. So just substitute your rich flavors out. If you had like a kind of meaty broth, say for example, if you're making a really lovely hot and sour soup, pop in a bit of sesame paste, because that'll give it a kind of richness that you don't get from vegetables themselves. So just look for different substitutes, but my main three: mushroom stock, sesame paste, a good bit of chili oil as well.
Yeah,
great chili oils.
Well, I mean, Vanessa, for those listening with maybe smallies in the house or in the room, how would you have any tips even for trying to encourage even not a fully vegan diet, but a more plant-based diet for kids? How would you go about that?
Yeah, so I think things like even bean burgers with, you know, sweet potato fries, or, you know, making your potato wedges in the oven. So think about what the kids really, really like. And, you know, some of the vegetables that maybe, you know, your peas and your sweet corn, or even you can make little sort of fritter patties with those vegetables, and even get the kids involved making them. And that, you know, if it's things that they already like but are a little bit different, I think they'll really, really enjoy that. Even looking at some of their favorite sweet treats, you know, maybe you could even get the kids into things like dates and peanut butter or something like that, just to be a bit healthy. I mean, that's a healthy, you know, healthy sweet thing for everyone, but it's good to get the kids used to that sort of thing as well. And, you know, if you do end up buying a bit of something processed, you know, you can buy plant-based chicken nuggets, for example. And we know from the research that the plant-based version of a lot of these meats are still much healthier than the meat versions. So even though we don't want to buy loads of the processed stuff, it's still going to be better for the health animals and the planet.
That's terrific. Vanessa, thank you so much indeed.